Students, we shall study about principles of management. Now, first of all, we must know meaning of principles of management. Principles of management serve as broad and general guidelines for the managerial decision making and action. Now, we need to keep three important terms in mind while we study this chapter. First of all, we will study about techniques. Techniques are procedures or methods which involve a series of steps to be taken to accomplish desired goals. Second important term in this chapter is values. Values are something which are acceptable or accepted or desirable by the society. Principles are basic truths or guidelines for behavior. Our next topic in this chapter is significance of principles of management. What is the need or importance or requirement or significance of principles of management? We shall study about that now. Our first point over here is providing managers with useful insights into reality. These management principles help to provide managers with useful insights into reality and increase their efficiency in dealing with recurring problems. Second point is optimum utilization of resources and effective administration. These management principles ensure optimum utilization of resources as due to the presence of cause and effect relationship, the outcome of the decisions and actions can be predicted. Moreover, it leads to effective administration as the principles tend to restrict the personal prejudices or biases. The third point over here is scientific decisions. These management principles facilitate scientific decision making as they emphasize on logical thinking rather than blind faith. Next point, meeting changing environment requirement. Like you know, beauty of our subject is a dynamic, and we need to keep this word dynamic in mind. And keeping this point dynamic in mind, these management principles help to meet the changing requirements to the environment to the best advantage of our organization. And next point is fulfilling social responsibility. These management principles help in fulfilling social responsibility of an organization towards various interested stakeholders. And the last point, management training, education, and research. These management principles facilitate the process of management, training, education, and research as they are at the core of management theory. Our next topic in this chapter is nature of principles of management. In this first point is universal applicability. The principles of management are deemed to apply to all types and all sizes of the organization. The second point over here is general guidelines. The principles are guidelines to action but do not provide ready-made straitjacket solutions to all managerial problems as the real business situations are complex and dynamic and are a result of many factors. Third point, formed by practice and experimentation. Principles of management are formulated by the management experts through observation and tested through repeated experimentation. Next point, flexible. The principles of management are not rigid prescriptions which have to be followed absolutely. They are flexible and can be modified by the manager in the light of given situation so as to relieve the desired goals. Management principles are mainly behavioral. The principles of management aim at influencing behavior of human beings in a desired manner. Our next point is cause and effect relationship. The principles of management seek to establish relationship between cause and effect so that they can be used in similar situations in a large number of cases. A very important point in principles of management, that is management principles, are contingent. Contingent means depends on prevailing situation. Now we can say that application of principles of management is contingent and dependent upon the prevailing situation at a particular point of time. Scientific management. Now in our curriculum, we have two types of principles of management. Number one, Fewell's principles of general management, and number two, Taylor's principles of scientific management. Now, Taylor has said scientific management means knowing exactly what you want your employees to do and seeing that they do it in the best and cheapest way. Now, Frederick Winslow Taylor is known as the father of scientific management, and Taylor has introduced techniques of scientific management. Now, in techniques of scientific management, the first technique introduced by Taylor is time study. Second technique is fatigue study. Third is method study. Fourth one, motion study. And then standardization and simplification. Next technique is functional foremanship, and then differential piecewise system. Time study is the technique to determine the standard time taken by a worker of average skill and knowledge to complete a standard task. In fatigue study seeks to determine the amount and frequency of rest intervals required in completing a task. Method study seeks to find out one best way of doing the job. And in motion study refers to the study of movements of limbs which are undertaken while doing a typical job. This helps to eliminate unnecessary movements so that it takes less time to complete the job efficiently. Standardization. Standardization refers to the process of setting standards for every business activity. And simplification that aims at eliminating superfluous varieties, sizes, and dimensions of product. Now, in functional foremanship is known as the extension of principles of division of work and specialization to the shop floor. Each worker is supposed to take orders from 8 foremen in the related process of function of production, namely instruction card clerk. He assigns work to all the employees. Route clerk, he decides how work will progress regarding total production so that production is on time. Time and cost clerk, he determines what will be the total cost and how much time each job takes. Disciplinarian, he sees that there is discipline at the workplace. And under production department, there is a production in charge and speed boss. He ensures that the work is moving at a suitable pace. Gang boss, he ensures sufficient availability of raw material, tools, equipments, etc. Repair boss, he sees that whenever some repair is involved in any work, the work is done properly. Then inspector, he sees whether the quality of output is good or not. Now the last technique is differential piecewise system. In differential piecewise systems were introduced to reward efficient workers by paying them at a higher rate than those who performed below standard. In principles of scientific management, Taylor has introduced 4 principles of scientific management. First one is science, not rule of thumb. Taylor believed that there was only one best method to maximize efficiency, which can be developed through study and analysis, and should substitute rule of thumb or hit and trial method throughout the organization. The scientific method involved investigation of traditional methods through work study, unifying the best practices and developing standard method which would be followed throughout the organization. In the present context, the use of the internet has brought about tremendous improvements in internal efficiency and customer satisfaction. Now, the second principle of scientific management is harmony, not discord. Taylor emphasized that there should be complete harmony between the management and workers instead of a kind of a class conflict, manager versus workers. To achieve this state, Taylor called for a complete mental revolution on the part of both management and workers. The prosperity for the employer cannot exist for a long time unless it is accompanied by prosperity for the employee and vice versa. He advocated a paternalistic style of management that is being used in Japan, and that paternalistic style of management should be practiced in the organization. Cooperation, not individualism. This principle is an extension of principle of harmony, not discord. There should be complete cooperation on between the labor and the management instead of individualism. Competition should be replaced by cooperation, and there should be an almost equal division of work and responsibility between workers and management. Also, management should reward workers for their suggestions, which result in substantial reduction in costs. At the same time, workers should desist from going on strike and making unreasonable demands on the management. And the last principle of scientific management, that is development of each and every person to his or her greatest efficiency and prosperity. Taylor was of the view that the concern for efficiency could be built in right from the process of employee selection. Each person should be scientifically selected, and the work assigned should suit her or his physical, mental, and intellectual capabilities. To increase efficiency, they should be given the required timing. Efficient employees would produce more and earn more. This will ensure their greatest efficiency and prosperity for both company and workers. Now, second type of principles of management that has been introduced by Fayol, Henry Fayol has introduced 14 principles of management. First one is division of work. Second is parity of authority and responsibility. Third principle is principle of discipline. Fourth principle is principle of unity of command. Fifth principle, principle of unity of direction. Then he has introduced principle of subordination of individual interest to general interest. Then he introduced principle of fair remuneration to employees. Next principle is principle of centralization and decentralization. Then principle of scalar chain has been introduced by Fayol. Then principle of order, principle of equity, then principle of stability of tenure, principle of initiative, and principle of esprit de corps. These 14 principles has been introduced by Fayol. Now in division of work. The whole organization work, both managerial and technical, should be divided into smaller jobs, and the task involved in doing each such job should be determined. It leads to specialization, speed, efficiency, and accuracy of work. Now, the next principle is authority and responsibility. There should always be a balance between the authority given and the responsibility entrusted to an employee. This is because if authority is more than responsibility, the employees are likely to misuse it. Whereas if authority is less than responsibility, he or she will be unable to do the desired work. Then there is a principle of discipline. Discipline means sincerity in every walk of life, and it refers to the obedience to organizational rules and the employment agreement. It is necessary for the systematic working of the organization. It requires good superiors at all levels, clear and fair agreements, and judicious application of penalties. Unity of command. Employees should have only one direct supervisor. There should be one and only one boss for every individual employee from whom he should receive orders, and be responsible to dual subordination should be avoided. Next is unity of direction. All the units of an organization should be moving towards the same objectives through coordinated and focused efforts. Each group of activities having the same objective must have one head, one plan. Our next principle, that is subordination of individual interest to the general interest. In all the situations, the interest of an organization should take priority over the interest of any one individual employee. Our next principle is principle of remuneration of employees. The overall pay and compensation should be fair to both employees and the organization. The employees should be paid fair wages, which should give them at least a reasonable standard of living. At the same time, it should be within the paying capacity of the company, that is, remuneration should be just and equitable. Now, the principle of centralization. In principle of centralization and decentralization, you can remember C for centralization, C for concentration of authority, and D for decentralization, D for dispersal of authority. The concentration of decision-making authority is called centralization, whereas its dispersal among more than one person is known as decentralization. Large organizations have more decentralization than small organizations. The next principle, principle of order, the people and materials. It means two kinds of order we must have, social order and material order. People and materials must be in suitable places at appropriate time for maximum efficiency. That is a place for everything or everyone and everything in its place. Now the next principle is principle of scalar chain, and with the help of this diagram you can understand this principle. The formal lines of authority along which the communication flows from highest to lowest ranks are known as scalar chain. Gangplank is a shorter route that has been provided so that communication is not delayed during emergencies. However, the superior has to be informed later on. Next principle, that is principle of equity. This principle emphasizes kindliness and justice in the behavior of managers towards workers. No discrimination should be made by them on the basis of caste, creed, gender, or otherwise any other area you can take. Like stability of tenure of personnel. Managers should strive to minimize employee turnover. Personnel planning should be a priority. It means the employee turnover should be minimized to maintain organizational efficiency. Personnel should be selected and appointed after due and a regular procedure. After placement, they should be kept at their post for a minimum fixed tenure so that they get time to show results. Any adhocism in this regard will create instability or insecurity among employees. They would tend to leave the organization. And the next principle is principle of initiative. Initiative means taking the first step with self-motivation. The workers should be encouraged to develop and carry out their plans for improvement. Suggestion system should be adopted in the organization. Esprit de corps, organizations should strive to promote team spirit and unity, and management should promote a team spirit of unity and harmony among employees. A manager should replace I with we in all his conversations with workers. Last but not the least, the last topic is comparison between the contribution of Henry Fayol and F.W. Taylor. Henry Fayol is a father of modern management who laid down 14 principles of management for improving overall administration, while F.W. Taylor is a father of scientific management who introduced 4 principles of management for increasing overall productivity. The concept of Henry Fayol was based on general theory of administration, while the concept of F.W. Taylor was based on scientific management. Henry Fayol given more emphasis on top level management, while Taylor has given more emphasis on lower level management. Applicability. Henry Fayol's principles are universally applicable, while Taylor's principles applies to specialized organizations only. Henry Fayol's principles are based on personal experiences, while Taylor formed the principles on the basis of observation and experimentation method. Orientation of Henry Fayol is a managerial function, while Taylor's orientation is for production and engineering. System of wage payment, as per Henry Fayol's recommendation, is sharing of profit with managers, while Taylor has recommended differential piece wage system or differential payment system. Managerial approach has been adopted by Henry Fayol, while the engineer's approach has been adopted by F.W. Taylor. Thank you very much. You are most welcome for queries.